Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into some really eye-popping numbers.
We're looking at Credo Technology Group.
Right, they're squarely focused on that high-speed connectivity that's so critical for data infrastructure now.
Especially with AI just booming,
Yeah, exactly. So our mission here is to pull out the most important takeaways, the real nuggets, from their latest earnings Q4 and the full fiscal year 2025.
Yeah, kind of get you the vital info without you having to sift through all the reports and calls yourself.
So just to set the stage quickly,
Right.
Credo makes those essential connections inside data centers. Things like active electrical cables.
AECs, yeah. And optical products, plus retimers, those chips that boost the signals.
And these things need to be incredibly fast, super reliable, and this is key, really energy efficient for today's massive data loads.
And looking at their fiscal 2025 headlines, well, record-breaking is definitely the term.
Okay, hit me with the big number.
They delivered $437 million in revenue for the year. That's up a massive 126% year over year.
Wow, okay, 126%. But you mentioned something about the ramp within the year.
That's what's really striking. Quarterly revenue nearly tripled between Q1 and Q4.
Tripled.
Yeah, they hit $170 million in Q4 alone. That itself is up 180% from the same quarter last year.
That kind of acceleration, I mean, in just 9 months.
Yeah.
That really suggests something significant is happening, like, right now.
It does, and what's great to see is that this growth, it's actually flowing down to the bottom line, too. Profitability looks good.
Okay, how so?
Well, their non-GAAP gross margin was solid, 65% for the full year.
And gross margin is revenue minus cost of goods, basically.
Right, adjusted for some items. And it got even better in Q4, hitting 67.4%. That suggests, good pricing power, good operational control as they scale up.
And operating margin.
Also improved significantly. It led to a non-GAAP EPS, that's earnings per share, of $0.70 for the year. Pretty strong.
Okay, impressive results. So what's the engine behind this? What's driving this massive surge and especially this rapid acceleration we saw?
Fundamentally, it's demand. Just surging demand for their high-performance connectivity stuff.
Driven by AI.
Almost entirely fueled by the big shift to AI workloads, yeah. Their main customers are the hyperscalers, the huge cloud providers building out these enormous AI clusters.
And Credo provides the connections they need for that.
Exactly. They support the kind of crazy port speeds required, from 100 gigabits per second up to 1.6 terabits per second.
And are they still heavily reliant on just one or two big customers? Or is that changing? That seems important for, future stability.
That's a really key point, and yeah, they are diversifying. In Q4, they had 3 different hyperscalers, each contributing over 10% of revenue.
Okay, that's good. Though the largest was still pretty big.
Yeah, the largest was still 61%, so significant.
Yeah.
But here's the really interesting part for the future. They specifically mentioned expecting 2 new hyperscale customers to start ramping up in the second half of fiscal 2026.
2 new ones. That's big news for broadening their base.
It really is. It moves them beyond just the current big players.
Okay, so that diversification plan, it must tie into their outlook then, which I gather is pretty strong.
Extremely strong. For fiscal 2026, they're projecting revenue to exceed $800 million.
Over $800 million.
Yeah.
After hitting $437 million, that's, over 85% growth again?
Exactly. Over 85% year-over-year growth, right on top of the huge year they just had. And they expect non-GAAP net margin to approach 40%.
Wow. And near term. Q1 guidance.
For Q1 fiscal 26, they guided revenue between $185 and $195 million. Non-GAAP gross margin expected between 64% and 66%. So continued strength right away.
Okay, so with that kind of strong outlook, let's maybe dig a bit deeper into the how. Which products, which technologies are really carrying the momentum here?
Right, let's look at the product lines. Their active electrical cables, AECs, seem to be a really big part of the story right now.
AECs. Those are the copper cables, right? But active.
Yeah, copper, but with active chips in them to maintain signal integrity over longer distances than passive copper. They're seeing really steep growth, especially for connecting server racks, rack to rack up to about 7 meters.
And why are they winning there, especially for AI?
2 key things: reliability and power. They claim over 100 times greater reliability than laser-based optical modules for those kinds of distances.
100 times. That's huge.
It is. And they use significantly less power than standard passive copper trying to do the same job, which is critical in these massive AI data centers.
Makes sense. And the speeds there.
Well, 50 gigabits per second per lane is the current volume leader in deployments, but they said the trend is moving very quickly to 100 gig per lane.
Okay, so AECs are hot. What about their optical side and the retimers?
Optical also had a strong year. They highlighted a big design win for an 800 gig transceiver.
800 gig. Wow.
Yeah, with a US hyperscaler expected to ramp in fiscal 26. This uses their specialized DSP chips, digital signal processors.
Essential for those speeds.
Absolutely. And they're really pushing power efficiency there too. They showed off an 800G demo using their LRO DSP that only used about 9 watts. That's incredibly low power for that speed.
Power is always critical in data centers.
Right.
And retimers.
Those are the signal boosters. They're expanding into AI server vendors there and seeing faster pickup in PCIe Gen 6 opportunities.
PCIe Gen 6.
Yeah.
That's the next-gen connection inside the servers.
Right. They expect design wins this calendar year, with production revenue kicking in next calendar year. So pipeline building there too.
And didn't they mention some kind of software platform?
Ah, yes, Pilot. Predictive integrity, link optimization, telemetry.
Okay, what does that do?
Think of it like an intelligence layer for the connections. It helps customers monitor, debug, and optimize these massive complex deployments. It's a differentiator, helping ensure reliability and speeding up time to market for customers.
Got it. So it's not just hardware. There's a software angle helping manage it all.
Exactly.
Okay, wow. So pulling all this together, the big picture seems to be Credo is riding a massive wave, really driven by intense AI demand.
Definitely. And hyperscalers adopting their high-speed solutions across the board.
Right, with clear signs of customer diversification coming online, which is great to see. And a really robust growth forecast for fiscal 26, fueled by momentum in AECs, optical, and retimers.
That sums it up nicely. It really captures their current trajectory.
So what's the final thought here? Something for us to chew on.
Well, it really brings up that ongoing, fascinating strategic question for AI data centers. What's the right balance going forward between copper solutions like these AECs and more advanced optical solutions?
Ah, the copper versus optical debate.
Exactly. The market's clearly loving copper with AECs for certain links right now because of the reliability and power benefits. But the demand for even higher speeds and longer distances just keeps growing like crazy.
So how companies like Credo, who play in both areas, navigate that trade-off? That'll be key.
Absolutely. Watching that interplay, especially as these new hyperscalers ramp up, will be really interesting.
That's a great point to end on. A lot to watch unfold there. Thanks for walking us through this deep dive.